Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hey, y'all, what's going on? We're getting down to it. It is December 3rd already. It is getting real close to crunch time. I hope those Christmas projects are coming together, falling into place. Yeah, I've got too many to count back here, but we'll see it through. I've I've never not made it before. I've had to cheat a few times, but I've never not made it before. But let's hope that yours works out the same way. Before we get into today's topic, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping here. First and foremost, I would like to give my heartfelt thanks to everybody who contributed to the GoFundMe for my niece and nephew. Uh, you all were very, very generous, and I sincerely thank you all for being so generous. It was an unexpected outpouring. I really appreciate it. I know she appreciates it. So, from Linda, myself, and the entire family, a sincere thank you very much. Um, let's see. The next little bit of housekeeping, oh, yeah, is to, of course, mention my friend Steve out there in the chat. Steve runs a tidy little Keebler tree called Harneal Media. That is a portmanteau, if you will, a conglomeration of his name and his wife's name mashed together. And that's about the only mashing he does. He's very good at what he does. If you're thinking about developing or increasing a web presence to get your products and your services out there in front of the teeming masses, there's no better way to do it than with a website. You can cut out the middleman like Etsy or eBay or anybody else who wants a percentage of your profits by developing a web store and running it yourself. Steve can help you hook up a web store. He can help you with merch if you want to create t-shirts, baseball caps, coffee cups, etc. He can hook you up with a print on demand company that'll take care of all the inventory, shipping, taxation, all of that stuff. I'm telling you, you owe it to yourself to at least reach out to Steve. There's a link to Harneal Media in every video on my channel. At least reach out and talk to him, and hopefully you can be added to the list of his satisfied customers. I'm proud to call him a friend, and he's the only person that I will ever refer people to. Thank you, Steve, for everything you do for me and for all of your clients. Thank you. So, let's get in and let's oh yeah, I'm seeing here in the comments we're getting into winter weather. We got snow in Cornwall. We've got snow, I know, from Kurt in Wisconsin. We got snow there. Thankfully we got none here. Phew. But this too will change. The only thing that stays the same is that everything's going to change. We'll see what happens. On to the topic. Last week, we talked about the Polyline tool. Then we got into rotating polylines, and you saw me get frustrated over why something wouldn't work that had worked before in Aspire. And I haven't fixed the problem. I haven't solved the problem, but think I have identified the problem. We'll see where it goes from here. So let me go ahead and get into Aspire, and we'll get into it here. Now, if you recall last week, what I was trying to do was I was trying to rotate a polyline. Now, I found a couple of things here. And the issue that I was having was once a polyline, okay, let me just go ahead and do it this way. We're going to rotate the selected objects. Now, it didn't matter if I used absolute or relative. I was trying for absolute. And as long as my rotation center was right here in the middle, and let's say I'm going to use the same number just simply because it's stuck in my head. I want to rotate it to 88.5 degrees. No problem. It'll rotate. I'll Control Z that. And if I want to rotate that to 88.5 degrees, and where's my rotation center? There's my rotation center. I move my rotation center down to the end and click apply, nothing. If I move my rotation center somewhere along the line here, nothing. And I got frustrated because I could not figure it out. So I went back into my older versions of the software. And for example, on this computer, I happen to still have version 11.0. The other version was 11.5. So now here in version 11.0, I'll create a line and let's rotate. Let's go down to let's rotate it around the center. Let's go ahead and use the 88.5 and apply, and it works. That's perfect. That's fine. I'll Control Z to undo that. And now I want to move my rotation center down to the end and do 88.5 degrees, and it works just fine. Control Z to undo that. Now let me move my rotation center somewhere up in here, changing nothing else up above. And we'll go 88.5, apply, and it works just fine. The only thing I can think of is when they created version 11.5, they freely and openly admit that they got in and they went under the hood into the nuts and bolts of the software a little bit deeper and rebuilt a lot of the infrastructure so that the rendering, the 3D view, the previews, and everything else, and even toolpath calculation would take advantage of more modern hardware like video cards with a larger GPU and dedicated RAM on a video card and what have you. I'm thinking when they did that, it created a bug under the hood. So what I'm in the process of doing is I'm going to record a little video and link it to the folks at Vectric, send it to support, and I don't know who will pick it up, probably either Charlie or Nav, but it could be anyone else. But I'm going to do a short video to show them the difference in the two versions. So that's why I was frustrated and why I was mystified, because it did work in version 11.0, but in 11.5 it doesn't work. Now, there is something else to be said, and I don't have any older versions than 11.0 on this computer, but I have back to 9.0, Aspire 9.0 on one old computer, and back to VCarve 8.0 on another old computer. And still, none of them will adjust a vector that's already angled. I'll show you what I mean by that here. We're in 11.5. Let's go ahead and we'll create a vector that's at 26 degrees, for example. And now I want to rotate this to an absolute of 88.5. So I have it selected, get into rotate. I want an absolute rotation to 88.5 and click apply. And it will, that is not an absolute rotation. That was a relative rotation. So it's not giving me an absolute rotation to 88.5 degrees. And that is true in version 11.0, version 9 of Aspire, version 8.0 of VCarve. So it wants to flip it. It wants to give it a relative rotation and not an absolute rotation. So I plan on showing them that as well. Maybe it's something I'm not doing right, but I tried them identically in version 11.5 and version 11.0, and I got the same result. So let's do, what did I say, 26 degrees. It's not urgent that I be right on 26. There's 26.4. Close and select that. Rotate. My rotation center stays the same. And I want an absolute rotation, 88.5. Apply. And again, it flips it. It does a relative rotation. So I'm going to bring up both topics with Vectric. See, am I doing something wrong, or am I doing it, backwards or something to that effect? So that was the gist of the follow-up, in that we weren't necessarily doing anything wrong. We just found a little bug under the hood. And so I'm going to try to get it taken care of. And I will update you when I get a reply. But again, I've got to make a short video. I just haven't gotten that far yet. It's been a busy 3-4 days. And as soon as I get an update from them, I will update you on possible causes and any fix that they come up with. Dwayne Ruthig, thank you for checking, Dwayne. He says it's the same way in VCarve 11.5. So, okay, that's going to be something to keep an eye out for. Let's see here. Okay, so that's it for that. We do have a few questions on that came in while the music was playing and before. So let's go ahead and get into those. Vortex 8 says, I was following your Spoilboard video, and for the most part, everything came out okay, but it left about a 3/8 of an inch area. Let's see what that is in millimeters. 0.375. It's about 9.5 millimeters. Along the back that it would not get, and it's giving me y-axis errors, and it will, because you have that little lip where it didn't surface that spoil board. You have any ideas what I'm doing wrong? Well, you didn't really do anything wrong. It's one of those cases of making sure that the depth of your spoil board is 100% within the cutting envelope of your machine. Okay. And you need to factor in the diameter of your surfacing bit when you're talking about that. So after a little bit more investigation and a little bit more questioning here in the chat, turns out what he's using is a 1 1/8" surfacing bit. And let's see what that is. 0.125. That's about a 28.5 millimeter diameter surfacing bit. And it just didn't quite get to the rear. When I created that video, one of the first things I did was before I even mounted my spoil board, I just slipped a Sharpie marker into the 1/2" collet in my router at the time. And I understand if you don't have a 1/2" collet, that's not easy to do. But you can take a pencil and you have to remove the eraser and maybe shave it down a little bit. Get a pencil to fit into your 1/4" collet. And I took my gantry all the way back as far as it would go until it tripped the limit switch, backed off about 1/4 inch, and then brought this down just so the tip of that pen or pencil will touch the spoil board, and I drew a line. That gave me a measurement of my the depth, the safe depth my gantry can reach. I then measured from, because I was using a Sharpie pen, the line was pretty wide. I measured from the front edge of that line to the front edge of my spoil board, and that was the length I cut my pieces to, my spoil board pieces to. That way, when I chucked my surfacing bit in my router, I knew that it would get all the way around my spoil board. And I did the same here on my Avid CNC. I laid down a plywood table that covers the entire frame. Then I put a Sharpie pen in the 1/2" collet, took it all the way back till it tripped my limit switches, backed it off 1/4 inch, and drew a line across that plywood table. And then that's how I sized the pieces of my spoil board. Now, Vortex, I know he had to take off. He has a glass blowing class this afternoon. Must be nice. That would be cool. So he's probably going to be watching this on replay. You have a few options if this should happen to you. You need to have the entire surface of that spoil board the same level. Otherwise, if you throw a longer piece up there, just enough of a ridge, that piece that was not surfaced, is going to make your piece of material sit wonky. So there's a few choices. One, if you can, get a larger diameter bit, surfacing bit. Now, in his case, he would need one to a 2" diameter surfacing bit. Problem there is he only has a 1/4 inch collet. That's the largest collet he has. And finding a bit that big around is going to be a tall order. In fact, I don't know of any manufacturer off the top of my head that makes that large a diameter bit with a 1/4 inch collet. You can find 1.5" bits with 1/4 inch collet, but even then you're pushing it. Very, very shallow cuts. Now, an 1.5" bit will remove more of that step on the back edge, leaving you with about, I'm not sure how big you made your vectors or where you placed your vectors, but it may leave about a 1/4 inch wide ridge that could be taken off either by sanding it off with maybe a belt sander or a maybe go at it with a hand plane or a chisel. Or, and let's see, Brooks says that much spinning mass will tend to bend a 1/4 inch shank. Yeah, which is why I really don't recommend something that big. 1.5 inches, you're pushing it. Just take shallow cuts with it and make sure you ramp in all your plunge moves. Luckily for Vortex 8, they didn't glue down their spoilboard strips. They are bolted down. You probably don't want to hear this, but it would probably be the easiest way to do it. And that would be, I believe you said there's 3-inch wide strips. That would be 1 by 1 so you don't get them confused. Mark the front edge of the strip, unbolt it, take it off, cut it down. Cut the length down to so that you remove that unfinished step in the back. Put it back on, bolt it down, move on to the next one. When you're done with that, when you're done 1 by 1 doing the entire spoil board, take a pencil. I've got pencils all over the place. Scribble along the entire spoil board and surface it down. One more surfacing pass. That way you know you've got, because you're probably not going to tighten those bolts down to the same torque you had them before. So you may have some unevenness, but surface it all down until all those pencil marks are gone, and then you should be all set. Other than that, if you don't want to take it off 1 by 1 and shorten up the length of those strips, and as I said, I would mark the front edge so you get them back in the proper orientation. And get it all bolted down, then surface it again. If you don't want to do that, it's down to sanding that ridge off or planing it off or something like that. So, and then are you ever really going to be able to get that down to the perfect level that the rest of your spoil board is? Probably not. I would just unbolt it strip by strip, cut that piece off, and lesson learned, you know. It's the simple things that tend to come back and bite us. And trust me, been there, done that, got the T-shirt. So, Mark, I'm afraid I don't understand your question. How shovel? You mean shallow? Should a 1/4 inch shaft be? How shallow of a cut? Well, it depends on the diameter of the bit. On a, say, an 1.5 inch bit, with a 1/4 inch shaft, of course, it also depends on the horsepower of your router / spindle. For instance, I was using a Porter Cable 890 series router, which was 2.25 horsepower. And I would go, let's see, I would go probably a 1/16 of an inch per pass, which is 0.625, about a millimeter, about 1.6 millimeters deep per pass. I, generally speaking, don't go that deep anyway, even with my 2-inch. Generally, I'm taking 10 or 20 thousandths off. If I go 20 thousandths of an inch off per pass, that's 50 millimeters. No, that's not either 50 millimeters. That is 0.02. That's a 1/2 mil. So 1/2 millimeter per pass. Now, Bob says, I think he means shank into the collet. All right, that's a topic of discussion on its own. because every bit manufacturer is just a little bit different, but I can give you a little bit of a example here. Is that the quarter inch or is that my 6 mm? That's my quarter inch. All right. On a straight end mill like this, you want as much of that shank up in that collet as you can get, but you don't want it to poke out the back like so. You want that shank down in up in there without the cutting flutes going into the collet. But you want as much of that. You can see where that is. That's almost all the way in there. You want that shank in that collet. Now, when it comes to something like a this type of V-bit, and we're going to see if this will do it. If you look where that shank meets the head of that bit, you'll see it's not straight. The shank is not straight up into this head. There's a radius there. There's a fillet. And they do that because a straight, the shank going straight up in there, that could crack where these two meet. So it's filleted there. You don't want that fillet to go up into that collet. You'll want to put that bit up in that collet about like so. Yeah, I've got about, you see, about 1/8 of an inch. Now, that is not buried all the way in there, but you can see that there is enough space there to where it's grabbing the shank. You don't want that buried up in there, like so. The reason is because when you go to tighten this collet nut down, the collet's going to grab hold of that little bitty fillet, and it could very easily drop out. And you don't want this rattling around in there or coming loose. Best case scenario is the collet just drops it. Worst case scenario is this thing is now a projectile. So you want to, on a bit like this, you want to leave some space there. But if it's got a straight shank, get as much of that bit in there, in that collet as you can without it coming out the back. Okay. Now, Eyal Peleg says some of my tools have a laser etched line showing how deep it should go. Yes, some do. And sometimes it's I won't say it's comical, but it is, well, it is a little bit comical. If you look at the shank of the bit, it'll look like, hold it up sideways, and I don't have one right here right now. It'll look like the letter K on the shank of the bit. Well, that's not a letter K. What that is that's a line with an arrow pointing to that line. That's where you're supposed to, that's the line. The collet, the shank goes into the collet up to that line at a minimum. That's their recommendation. A lot of manufacturers do mark their shanks like that so that you know where to put it into the collet, but not all of them do. And in fact, most of mine don't have that. So now, if that's not what you meant, Mark, sorry. But yeah, on a 1/4 inch collet, I tend to take shallow cuts on large diameter bits. And again, ramp in your plunge moves, because especially on a surfacing bit, not all of them have a cutter that goes all the way across the bottom. It's not meant to plunge straight down. You need to ramp in so you're clearing away the material, and the center of your bit that doesn't have a cutter doesn't excuse me, it doesn't bottom out on the material. How do you allow for the auto zero with the shank so close? My touch plate will allow me to get that right down there and touch off. It depends on what kind of touch plate you have, I guess. If your touch plate has a rim all the way around it, then it may be difficult. If your touch plate is open on one or two sides, then you should be able to get that bit down in there to touch off. So, my dust collector, my dust shoe comes off. I throw my touch plate up there, and I do it with my 2-inch surfacing bit all the time when I'm surfacing slabs or panels or what have you. And it's got enough space to where it just comes down and touches off. And I disconnect the wires and go. So, another thing to watch out for on large diameter bits like that is your RPMs, your spindle RPMs. Depending upon the manufacturer, look at their recommendations. Some of them will say max RPM of 18,000. Some of them will say a max RPM of 16,000. It just depends on the diameter of the bit and the manufacturer's recommendation. Because basically, it's kind of like a record on a turntable in that the center of the record is turning a little bit slower than the outside edge of the record. You know, you don't want the tips of those bits can go supersonic if you ain't careful. You don't want that. So you don't want that mass going that fast. So follow the manufacturer's recommendations on that. I think about the slowest I have seen has been 16,000 RPM max, but that was for a pretty large bit. So, okay, let's get back into some other questions. I only have one other question here. That is Brooks Martin said, I tried the mirror of vector using flip about line, a spiral, and got weird results. Any thoughts? I then had to ask him a little bit what kind of weird results. And he said it seemed to ignore a logarithmic spiral with 3 wraps. I said, okay. So let's give it a try. Let's bring Aspire back in here. And I'm just going to use, no, you got to go over here to Aspire, Mark. You can't click it on your screen. I'm just going to use this line here. And this is not a demonstration of this gadget. But we'll go up here to the spiral gadget. And I'm going to create a logarithmic spiral. I'll leave this as it is, a 6-inch width wrapping 3 times around. And we'll go ahead and apply, close that. Now I need to center that up on my material. So there we go. I have my logarithmic spiral with 3 wraps. Now let's go into mirror, selected objects, and we want to flip about a line. So I'll have to hold down shift and select my line. And it's going to flip this spiral around the line. Let's see if we get weird results, Brooks. Nope, looks good to me. It worked. Looks good to me. Let me go ahead and select that. Then we'll shift and we'll flip it again. It seemed to work for me, Brooks. I don't know what it is, but there have been times I have discovered in the last, I want to say, well, with version 11.5. I've noticed that certain things will suddenly stop working. But if I save the file and exit Aspire, then start it up again and load the file, everything works perfectly. I can't explain it. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. Brooks says, the spiral is the flipping about vector, if that makes any sense. It doesn't. Sorry. The spiral, it worked for me. I mean, hold down. Well, let's get into the mirror. Now you said the spiral. Do you mean the spiral isn't flipping about the vector? This is gonna go vertical because that's my vector is horizontal. So if I hold down shift and select that vector, watch the center of the spiral here. It's going to flip about the line. The bottom of the spiral is right there. Oh, it's flipping the straight line to mirror around the spiral. Okay. What is your vector selection order? That matters big time. Let me close this. You have to select the spiral. That's what you want to flip. Then you have to hold down shift and select the vector that you wanted to flip around. It's kind of like using a 2-rail sweep or extrude along a single line. You select, but it's backwards from that. You have to select the thing you want to flip, then you have to select the thing you want it to flip about. Now, if you select the vector first, then select the spiral, it is going to move the vector. But if that's not what you intended, if you wanted to flip the spiral around the vector, Control Z, you have to select the thing you want to flip, then you have to select the thing you want it to flip about. It appears to me that it's working just fine. This vector is staying put. So, um, I can't say what's happening with yours, but now, if you just want a copy, you don't need to use the vector. You can just flip about Job Center and create a copy. So, but the tool is doing what it's supposed to be doing. I've been talking about my last demo. The vector to mirror is a scalloped line around the spiral. Okay, I'm going to have to see the file. You're going to have to send me the file, Brooks. You're attempting to model a seashell. You're going to have to send me yeah. This is not something that I can do right now in with you in the chat. You're going to have to send me the file and we're going to have to talk about it so I can see what's going on. Okay. I see what you're doing. You're trying to, I see where you're going. You're attempting to model a seashell. Okay. Okay. Let's see here now. And I believe, yeah, that was the last question. Does anybody have any questions at all about anything? I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to go right at the top of the hour. Got a family commitment, so I've got to keep my eye open on the time here. Let's see. Okay, I have a 42-inch monitor. I would like to find a faster way to reuse the draw curve over and over without having to go back and forth to the draw curve selector. Is there a shortcut? I think there is. Oh man, this is going to be okay. This may be painful, Ray, but stick with me, okay? Because um, there's a keyboard shortcut. Let me bring this in here. What you're trying to do is avoid having to go way over here on your monitor and just be able to get in a keyboard shortcut into the draw curve tool, right? Let me make sure that I'm over here. Yeah. So again, this may be painful to watch, but because I got to find it. But if you go to help, keyboard shortcuts, it's going to open up a browser video, a browser page. And here are the keyboard shortcuts. Now, this is known as a quick key. All right. A quick key, there it is right on top. A quick key is a keyboard shortcut to get you back into the last tool that you use, spacebar. Okay. So if you're trying to go back to the draw curve over and over, let's do this. Let's get rid of that spiral for a second here. And let's draw a curve here to here and here to here. Spacebar. I've just closed that. Now I've gone into selection mode, but now I need to draw another curve. Spacebar. It puts me right back into draw curve. And then come down this way, then down that way. Spacebar to accept that curve. Now I want to grab it, move this up here, drag that up, click off, spacebar. I'm back into draw curve. Is that what you were talking about, Ray? I just couldn't remember which. There, I just couldn't remember which keyboard shortcut it was, because I'm here to tell you, if you take a look at this, there are a ton of keyboard shortcuts, depending upon what you're doing. So, hopefully that answered that. Okay, yes, that is, thanks, that's perfect. Okay, yes, you're very welcome. Let me pull that out of here. Oh, okay. MS Woodworks, I think I understand. He wants to mirror a vector around the spiral. His spiral needs to be centered. If that's what you're going for, Brooks, okay, that's how I created the outside of the shell's vectors and was hoping to redo that process for the inside of the shell. Okay, I get what you're trying to do. You are you're trying to have a for lack of a better term, a vector or a profile follow along that spiral. Okay. Yeah, that's a completely different subject. I didn't understand what you were trying to say. So, let's see. Mark, can you explain bake and can you unbake something? Second answer first is no, not that I'm aware of. Let's get back into the software. And we'll go ahead and we'll delete these curves. And I'll go over here into clip art, and let's take a flat round circle, and I'm going to hold down shift and make that bigger. And then I'm going to take a baseball, and I'll put the baseball in the center of that. Okay. Go into my modeling tab, and I'm going to split my 2D and 3D views. Now I have added my baseball on top of my flat round circle, so that's what I have. What baking is it will take these two separate components and it will turn it into one single component. Okay, so let's select both of these, hold down shift, and we'll go right up here, bake the selected components into a single new component. We click, and now that is one single component. Once you bake them, can you unbake them? Well, let's try. If you have it set up, you haven't saved it, you haven't closed the file, and you're still within the window of Control Z, it does work. And that's where Michael, see, you taught me well, Michael. You can unbake as long as the file isn't saved. But if you have saved it and gone on, it cannot be unbaked. I think I know what you're talking about. I got your email. I will get back with you just as quick as I can on that. No, once it's baked and it is saved and you've moved on, it can't unbake it. What you can do, however, and this is what we probably should have done, come up here to the level, insert new level, then copy these to that new level. We'll hold down Control, drag them up. That's not going to work, is it? Or maybe it's taking a while. Nope, it did work, okay? I'm going to shut off the first level, and now I'm going to bake these two. So that's one. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Control Z, undo that move. So now this is one component. So now that's one component. If I turn that level off, turn this level on, make it active, these are still two separate components. The thing to remember, though, Greg, is that if you are, when you have done this, don't leave both levels turned on, because that's going to cause you no end of problems. So turn one level off, make sure your other level is your active level, then you're okay. Yes, technically that's not an unbake, it's an undo. The result is the same. Trying to unbake the globe, so I will start over. I have your original file. If you need it, I will send it back to you. That that we didn't bake. So I can send that back to you. Let's see here. Yeah, basically that's it. It is an undo. You're right. But the effect is the same. The result is the same. It will unbake, because there are there are certain things that you can do in the software that can't be undone even with a Control Z. So, I just wasn't sure if this was one of them. So, yeah, Greg, I will try to get that to you this afternoon. But again, I've got a commitment. I'm going to have to leave. Yeah, I've got a commitment this afternoon. I cannot miss. So otherwise, I will do my best. Let's see here. Chris Greaves wants to know, does anyone do picture mats on the CNC? What type of mat? I'm not I'm not sure what you're trying to do. If you mean photo, there is a way to do photos. I've not done them myself, so I'm not the expert at that. But let's see. Let me get here. So if you have more information on what you're talking about, was as far as picture mats is concerned. Oh, okay. 1/8 inch paper mats. Let's see. I have not done paper mats we're talking about matting for framing photos. I have not done that. I don't know anybody who has done that. The thing that I would be concerned about is most photo mats are cut at a 45-degree angle. If you look, it's a mat is like a non-corrugated cardboard, and you have a let's say, for example, a black covering and a white core. Most mats are cut at a 45-degree angle, so you end up with the appearance of a white pinstripe on the inside of that black mat. Now, Grant says he has cut them with a downcut 90-degree V-bit. Okay, I may have some questions for you about that. I've got my downcut V-bits. I have not tried them yet. They've not been chucked into my spindle. I simply haven't had the time. So if you would, maybe throw in some tips or tricks, or maybe leave them in the comments after the video is finished live, I'd be interested in talking to you about that, because that's something that's been in the back of my mind. But it's been my experience that with fiberboard like that, cardboard like that, V-bits like to tear up the paper. Then again, that just may be my ignorance in working with that material. Now, if you can get it perfected and dialed in, oh man, that would be really something. Because, well, let's take for an example an oval mat for an oval picture frame would really be something. And I know that's kind of a pain, where, doing it by hand. And y'all keep coming up with excellent ideas, and I think I've got more ideas than I have life expectancy now. So let's go in here and take a look. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research, because this is cool. This is a cool idea. I just wrote it down. Let's see. Brooks Martin says opens up a lot of potential. Yeah. Okay, Grant says, I have a mat cutter, but I needed to do mats bigger than it would handle. Okay, yeah, and that's perfectly legit. I'm just thinking some wild shapes. What do you think? Lots of blue tape and CA. Yeah, that would be an issue because you've got to make sure that sucker stays down there perfectly flat. It can't have any wobbles in it. Otherwise, you're really going to have an uneven mat. That's intriguing. That's really intriguing. Something worth exploring. Ozguzzy says, how about a drag knife? The only problem with a drag knife that I can think of is the fact that it cuts straight down 90 degrees. A drag knife you can't angle over. And maybe you could figure out how to angle it over, but now you're going to have to angle it over. Then it wants to go this way. It's going to have to flip around and go the other. I don't think a drag knife would do it. But it's something to look into. So, Chris, about all I can say is watch this space. I mean, who knows? I may have a chat with Grant here behind the scenes. If Grant, if you go over to the About tab on my YouTube channel and click, my email address is in there. And if you just send me an email address saying, hey, hi, it's me, I'll send you an email back and ask my questions because this is an interesting topic. And again, you guys are giving me ideas I don't know if I'm going to live long enough to explore. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap this up because, as I say, I'm under a time crunch today. I apologize for that. Um, Next week, I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet. I know everybody's starting to get busy for the holidays. So we're all kind of in our own heads and in our shops and trying to get things figured out. So um, if you'll leave me a comment, what would you like to see? Is there anything you would like for me to explore deeper? Because as I said, I want these live streams to have a topic. And this week, the topic we finished up quickly. I'd like to have something to explore a little bit further. But I want to know what you want to see. Is there something you'd like to see explained a little deeper? Is there something you don't think has been given enough love? I do plan on getting into gadgets. I left that poll on my community tab quite a ways back, and quite a few of you did take part in the poll, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And the last numbers I have, only 17% of you are using VCarve Desktop. So the overwhelming majority of folks are using either VCarve Pro or Aspire, and you have access to gadgets. So I am going to kind of get into a few of the gadgets. We'll discuss them and go a little bit further. Channel members, check the community tab. Two reasons. One is something a little bit special tomorrow night that I won't mention here, but check for the link to tomorrow's members only live stream. It's going to be a good one, and I hope to see everybody there. That would be great. If you don't know what I'm talking about or you want some more info on becoming a channel member, just click the join button down there by the subscribe button. A little panel is going to pop up and a video is going to play that'll tell you about channel membership. So, hope to see all my channel members tomorrow. For everybody else, I'll see you next week. Get out there and get that Christmas stuff taken care of. Y'all take care. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next Sunday.